The sign for Ashford came and went, a blur of green and white swallowed by the rearview mirror. 10 years. It didn't feel like 10 years. The town looked exactly the same, clinging to the hillsides like it was afraid to let go. The same peeling paint on the same clapboard houses. The same quiet desperation. My hands were slick on the steering wheel. I fumbled with the radio, needing a distraction. Some upbeat pop song I didn't recognize filled the car, all synthetic beats and a voice that sounded too happy. It was noise. It was fine. I drove past the old movie theater, its marquee letters missing, and turned onto Main Street. That's when it happened. The radio coughed, a burst of static, sharp and angry, like a snapped wire. Then, for maybe a single second, 2 seconds max, it wasn't pop music anymore. It was an acoustic guitar, a familiar strumming pattern, and a voice singing, "And after all, you're my Wonderwall." Just as quickly, the static hissed again, and the pop song returned, the singer chirping on as if nothing had happened. I blinked. Must be crossing signals from some oldie station, a weird bleed-through. That had to be it. But then I smelled it. The distinct, heavy scent of summer rain on hot asphalt. It filled the car, thick and unmistakable. I glanced outside. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. The pavement was bone dry. I sniffed the air vents. Nothing. Just the faint plastic smell of the rental car. My mind was playing tricks on me. Stress, that's all. It had to be. The funeral home was worse. The air was heavy with the scent of lilies, a cloying sweetness that tried and failed to cover up something else, something chemical. People moved in slow motion, speaking in low murmurs. I saw Jessica first. She was staring at her phone, her thumb endlessly scrolling. She looked up, saw me, and forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Mark was by the coffee urn, his face puffy. He was already on his 3rd cup, but I could tell it wasn't his first drink of the day. "Liam," Jessica said, her voice a little too bright. "You made it," I mumbled. The words felt stupid and hollow. We talked for a few minutes about nothing. My flight, the weather. Mark joined in, his voice a low rumble. He kept clapping me on the shoulder, a little too hard. They were avoiding it. We all were. Every time the conversation veered toward Sarah, toward why, one of them would steer it back to safe, shallow waters. It felt like we were all standing on thin ice, terrified of what was underneath. I needed to get away. I excused myself and walked toward the front of the room, to the open casket I couldn't bring myself to look at. Next to it, on an easel, was a large photograph of Sarah. It was from a few years ago, a summer barbecue. She was laughing, head thrown back, a bottle of beer in her hand. Her smile was real. It was the Sarah I wanted to remember. I stared at the photo, letting the memory of that day wash over me. I blinked, my eyes dry from the flight. And the picture changed. It was for less than a heartbeat, a flicker, but I saw it. Sarah's smile was gone. Her hair wasn't dry and sun-streaked anymore. It was dark, wet, and plastered to her forehead. A long, dark smudge of what looked like mud was smeared across her cheek. Her eyes were wide, staring right at me. I jerked back, my breath catching in my throat. I squeezed my eyes shut, then opened them again. She was smiling again, laughing at the camera. Hair perfectly dry. No mud. Fuck. I rubbed my face, the rough stubble scratching my palms. I didn't get enough sleep. That's all it was. Grief and exhaustion. A cocktail for seeing things. I glanced over at Mark and Jessica.
They were talking to an older couple, still avoiding my gaze. I couldn't tell them. They'd think I was crazy. Hell, I was starting to think I was crazy. Later that night, the hotel room felt like a sterile box. Beige walls, beige carpet, a painting of a sailboat on the wall. I tried watching TV, but the noise just grated on my nerves. I kept thinking about Sarah's picture. I tried to ask Mark about the accident back at the funeral home, just for a second. "Do you ever think about that night?" I'd asked. His face had tightened. "What's to think about?" he'd snapped, before turning away. Jessica had shot me a look that was pure panic. "Liam, don't," she said. "It's over. Let it be over." My phone buzzed on the nightstand, making me jump.
Mark's name glowed on the screen. "Hello?" I answered. Static. Then his voice, fast and ragged, like he was running. "Liam, are you there? Man, it's starting again. It's happening again. Mark, what's happening? Slow down." "That song. Fuck, Liam, I just heard that fucking song on the radio. And the tires. I can hear the tires." His voice was a choked whisper. A loud scraping sound cut through the line, followed by a sharp crack. The call went dead. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I hit redial instantly. It rang twice. "What?" Mark's voice was thick with sleep, annoyed. "Mark, are you okay? What the hell was that? The call just cut out." There was a long pause. "What are you talking about?" he said, his voice laced with irritation. "I was asleep. You just called me." A cold feeling, colder than anything I'd ever felt, crept up my spine. "No, you called me. You were freaking out, talking about a song, about tires." "Dude, I think you're drunk," he slurred. "Go to sleep. I'll see you tomorrow." He hung up. I stared at the phone, my hand trembling. My whole body was trembling. It didn't make sense. I pulled up my call log. My finger scrolled down the screen. There it was. One entry. Mark, outgoing call, 11:14 p.m. Nothing else. No missed call. No incoming call. It didn't happen. The call I just had, it never happened. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just my mind playing tricks. This wasn't just stress. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just in my head. It could fake things. It could make a phone ring, make me hear a voice, and then erase the evidence. It was editing my reality, and I was the only one in the audience. My breath came in ragged gasps. I was losing it. I was actually, genuinely losing my mind. I pressed the power button on the side of the phone, and the screen went black. For a second, I saw my own reflection in the dark glass, pale, wide-eyed. I tilted my head to the side. My reflection didn't. It stayed perfectly still, its eyes locked forward, staring out from the screen. And behind it, in the dark space of the reflection, a shape was forming. A faint, blurry outline of a person sitting where the back seat of a car would be. It was just there, a smudge in the darkness, looking over my reflected shoulder. I yelled and dropped the phone. It clattered on the floor. I scrambled back on the bed, my back hitting the wall. The screensaver had already kicked on, a picture of a mountain range. The reflection was gone. A sound. From outside, a soft, scraping noise against the pavement. My limbs felt like lead, but I forced myself off the bed and crept to the window. I pulled the curtain back just enough to see. The hotel parking lot was mostly empty, bathed in the sickly yellow glow of a single street lamp. And there, on the dry ground, was a trail. A long, dark, wet streak. It started near the bumper of an old pickup truck 2 spaces over. It snaked across the asphalt, glistening under the light, leading directly to my rental car. It stopped right beside the driver's side door and disappeared underneath. From the silence of the night, I heard a sound, faint but clear. Drip, drip, drip. Something was under my car, and it was leaking. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that face in the phone screen, my own face, but dead still, with something dark taking shape behind it. And I could hear that sound, the slow, rhythmic drip, 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 from under the car. For an hour, I sat on the edge of the bed, my back pressed against the headboard, just listening. The dripping eventually slowed, then stopped. Silence flooded the room, but it wasn't a comforting quiet. It was the kind of quiet that waits. Fuck this. I wasn't going to be cornered in a cheap hotel room. By dawn, I was out the door. The wet trail in the parking lot was gone. The asphalt bone dry, as if it had never been there. I checked under the car. Nothing. Not a drop of anything. Just dust and road grime. I told myself I'd imagined it. I told myself I was cracking under the pressure. I didn't believe a word of it. I found Mark at the Greasy Spoon, a diner off the highway that hadn't changed in 20 years. He was hunched over a booth in the back corner, staring into a mug of coffee. He looked like hell. His face was pale and pasty, his eyes bloodshot and darting around the room like he was expecting an attack. I slid into the booth across from him. He jumped, sloshing coffee onto the table. "Jesus, Liam, don't sneak up on a guy." "You didn't answer your phone," I said, my voice flat. I was sleeping. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He wiped at the spilled coffee with a flimsy napkin. I watched his hand. It was trembling, a slight but constant tremor that made the napkin jitter. "No, you weren't, Mark. You called me last night. You were freaking out." He finally looked up, his eyes wide with something that looked a lot like fear, but his voice was angry. "What are you talking about? I told you, you called me, woke me up. You were drunk or something." "I wasn't drunk," I insisted, leaning forward. "You said you heard the song. You said you could hear the tires." Mark's face went white. He slammed his mug down. A crack shot through the cheap ceramic. "Shut up," he hissed, his voice low and vicious. "Just shut the hell up." He glanced around, but no one was paying attention to us. "You're obsessed, Liam. You come back here after 10 years and you're digging all this shit up. Just let it be." "Something's wrong, Mark. You feel it too. I know you do." He shook his head, a frantic, jerky motion. "Nothing's wrong. I gotta go. I'm leaving town for a while, going to visit my cousin in Oregon." He threw a few crumpled bills on the table and stood up so fast his chair screeched against the linoleum floor. "Running won't help," I said quietly. "It's better than sitting here listening to you lose your mind," he shot back. "Let it go, man, for your own good. Let it go." He walked away without looking back. I watched him go, and I knew. He wasn't just scared. He was terrified. I had to get to Jessica. We were the only ones left. I got in my car and punched her address into the rental's GPS. The synthesized voice chirped, "Starting route to 142 Elm Street." I pulled out of the parking lot, my mind racing. What was this thing? What did it want? I drove for a few blocks, following the purple line on the screen. Then the screen flickered, just for a second. The map vanished, replaced by static, and then it came back. But something was different. The name of the street I was on, Maple Avenue, was gone. In its place, in the same clean digital font, were 2 words. Ashford Mile. My blood ran cold. "What the fuck?" I whispered. I tapped the screen, but it was unresponsive. The purple line was still there, urging me forward.
I kept driving, trying to rationalize it. A software glitch, a sick joke programmed by some local kid. It had to be. The GPS told me to turn right. I did. I drove for half a mile. The next instruction was another right. Then another. I knew this town. I knew this was taking me in a circle. After the third right turn, I saw the familiar sign for the Greasy Spoon up ahead. I was right back where I started. "Okay, you piece of shit," I muttered, and stabbed the power button on the GPS until the screen went dark. "I'll get there myself." I took a left, heading toward the old part of town where Jessica lived. I knew the way. It was burned into my memory. But every turn felt wrong. The streets seemed to shift and rearrange themselves. A road that should have been there was gone, replaced by a row of unfamiliar houses. A one-way street now pointed the wrong way. After 10 minutes of driving, my heart pounding with a rising panic, I saw it again. The highway. The sign for the Greasy Spoon. I had been funneled right back onto the main road leading out of town. It was like the town itself was trying to spit me out, or push me somewhere specific. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. I snatched it up. "Mark." I hit accept, my thumb shaking. "Mark, where are you?" The sound that came through was a chaotic roar of wind and a screaming engine. It was the sound of a car going way, way too fast. Over the noise, I could hear Mark's voice, a raw, terrified shriek. "It won't let me go! Liam, it won't let me turn! Mark, pull over, stop the car!" "I'm trying," he screamed, his voice breaking. "The wheel won't, it's turning on its own! Oh God, Liam, it's not letting me!" There was a sound like a bomb going off, a deafening, final crunch of metal and shattering glass. Then, a sudden, horrifying silence. The call didn't disconnect. The line was just dead, empty. At that exact moment, I looked up.
Far down the highway, in the direction Mark had been heading, a set of blue and red lights began to flash against the gray morning sky. I floored it. The rental's engine whined in protest, but I didn't care. I raced toward the lights, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. The scene came into view all too quickly. A single car, a dark blue sedan, was wrapped around the trunk of a massive old oak tree. The same oak tree, the one that sat on the sharpest bend of the Ashford Mile, the one we almost hit 10 years ago. I slammed on the brakes and stumbled out of the car. Police and paramedics were already there. A small crowd of onlookers had gathered. I pushed my way through, my stomach twisting into a cold, hard knot. It was Mark's car. There was no question. The front half was completely gone, obliterated by the impact. A state trooper, a guy with a tired face and a thick mustache, put a hand on my chest to stop me from getting closer. "You know him?" he asked, his voice weary. He was my friend," I choked out. The trooper nodded slowly. "I'm sorry, son. He was gone before we even got here." He gestured with his thumb back at the road. "Strangest damn thing. See those skid marks? They're pulling hard to the left, like he was trying to wrench the car into the other lane, away from the curve. But the car, it just went dead straight. Like physics just decided to take the day off. Or like something was pushing it right." My whole body went numb. It wasn't an accident. It was an execution. Mark tried to run, and this thing, this lie, it dragged him back by the throat and finished the job. A movement in the crowd caught my eye. Jessica. She was standing there, her hand clamped over her mouth, her face the color of ash. Our eyes met across the wreckage.
She pushed through the onlookers and came toward me, her movements stiff, robotic. She stopped right in front of me, her eyes wide and glassy with a terror I knew was a mirror of my own. She leaned in close, her breath smelling of coffee and fear. "Liam," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the crackle of a police radio. "Last night, 3 in the morning, my TV, it turned on by itself." I just stared at her, unable to speak. "It was playing the old news report," she said, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. We left the scene in a daze, the trooper's words echoing in my head, like something was pushing it. Jessica drove us to her house, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tight I thought it might snap. Neither of us said a word. There was nothing to say. We couldn't run. We couldn't hide. It was hunting us in unison, sinking its torture, making sure we both knew what was happening to the other. Her house was small and neat, filled with framed photos of people I didn't recognize. It felt like a life I'd never been a part of. "I need a drink," I said, my voice sounding like it belonged to someone else. "Water, I mean." "Kitchen," she mumbled, sinking onto her couch and staring at a blank wall. I went into the kitchen and opened the fridge. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grab a bottle of water. As I pulled it out, my elbow bumped a precarious stack of mail and old papers on the counter. The whole pile slid off and scattered across the floor. "Shit, sorry, Jess," I called out. I knelt down to pick it up. Bills, junk mail, a few old magazines, and underneath it all, a faded manila folder. The tab on the top read, "Accident Report, 08-14. My breath hitched. I opened it. It was a copy of the official police report from that night. My eyes scanned the familiar, horrible details. Vehicle description, road conditions, and then the list of vehicle occupants. 1. Markham, Paul. 2. Connell, Jessica. 3. Peterson, Sarah. 4. Ashworth, Liam. 4 names. Just like I remembered. Just like we'd always said. But my eyes drifted to the bottom of the page, to a section for evidence collection. And there, scrawled in faded red ink by a detective's pen, was a single, handwritten note. Item 5. Silver charm bracelet found on passenger side floor mat, engraved with the name Chloe. Owner, T.B. Chloe. The name hung in the air between us, colder and heavier than the silence that had followed us from the crash site. I looked up from the faded police report, my hand trembling so badly the paper rattled. Jessica was standing at me from the couch, her face a mask of confusion and dread.
Who? Who is Chloe?" she whispered. I didn't have an answer. The name was a key, but I didn't know what lock it fit. It felt like a word from a foreign language I used to speak but had long since forgotten. It meant nothing. And it meant everything. "I don't know," I said, and the words felt like a lie, even to me. "The bracelet, they found a bracelet." "We never knew anyone named Chloe," she shook her head, her eyes wide. "There were 4 of us, Liam, just 4. You, me, Mark, Sarah. That's it. That has always been it." Her voice was pleading, desperate for me to agree, to make the world right again. But the world wasn't right. It had cracked open, and something was crawling out. That's when the lights went out. 1 second, the room was lit by the flat, gray afternoon light filtering through the blinds. The next, we were plunged into near total darkness. Jessica let out a choked gasp.
I scrambled to my feet, knocking over the water bottle I'd never had a chance to drink. It clattered across the wood floor. "Power outage," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My heart was hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. "It's fine, just a blown transformer or something." Then, just as suddenly, they flickered back on. But not all of them. Only one thing in the room had power. In the corner, an old, bulky CRT television, the kind you don't see anymore, hummed to life. Its screen glowed with a blizzard of black and white static. "No," Jessica breathed, backing away from it. "I unplugged that thing years ago." "Jess!" "Unplug it again!" she shrieked, pointing a shaking finger. "Now, Liam, get it out of the wall!" I stumbled toward it, my feet tangling in a throw rug. My hands fumbled along the dusty wall behind the TV stand, searching for the cord. I found it, thick and stiff with age. I yanked. The plug came free from the socket with a dry pop. The static on the screen didn't even flicker. It kept churning, a chaotic sea of noise. And from within that hiss, a new sound began to emerge. Faintly at first, then clearer. Laughter. Young, carefree laughter. I knew that laughter. It was Mark's, loud and obnoxious. It was Sarah's, high-pitched and infectious. It was Jessica's. It was mine. "Make it stop!" Jessica sobbed, covering her ears. She had curled into a ball in the far corner of the room. "Please, make it stop!" The hissing faded, replaced by the sound of rain drumming on a metal roof. And then, a guitar. The opening chords of a song that clawed its way out of the deepest, darkest pit of my memory. "Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you." Oasis, Wonderwall, the song that was playing on the radio that night. The room was changing. I could smell it. The scent of dust and old furniture was gone, replaced by the smell of damp upholstery, cheap air freshener, and something else. Gasoline. The floorboards beneath my feet felt different, softer, vibrating with the low rumble of an engine. I looked down at my hands. They were gripping the back of a chair, but it wasn't a chair anymore. It was the headrest of a car seat, a cheap, worn-out vinyl seat. I looked up. The walls of Jessica's living room were dissolving like sugar in water, the framed pictures and wallpaper melting away into a smear of darkness. In their place, a rain-streaked windshield materialized, wipers smearing the downpour back and forth in a frantic, hypnotic rhythm. Headlights cut a tunnel through the black, wet night. "Liam?" Jessica's voice was right next to me. I turned. We weren't in her living room anymore. We were in a car. My old '98 Honda Civic. Jessica was in the passenger seat, looking just as she had 10 years ago, her face pale in the dashboard lights. In the back seat, I could see Mark and Sarah, laughing, their faces caught in a frozen loop of joy. And next to Sarah was a girl I didn't know. Her brown hair was plastered to her face by the rain. On her wrist, a silver charm bracelet glinted every time the streetlights passed over us. Chloe. My head exploded with a pain so intense I thought I was dying. It wasn't a headache. It was a memory hitting me with the force of a physical blow. The taste of cheap beer, too much of it. The feel of the steering wheel, slick beneath my sweating palms. The speedometer needle creeping past 80 on a road where the speed limit was 40. The laughter in the back, goading me on. "Faster, Liam, faster!" My hands were on the steering wheel. Oh, God.
My hands were on the wheel, but I couldn't control them. I was a passenger in my own body. I saw the turn coming up, the sharp bend marked by that huge, ancient oak tree. I tried to brake. My foot wouldn't move. I tried to turn the wheel. My arms were locked in place. The car kept going, dead straight. The tree filled the windshield. There was a sound like the world tearing in half, a flash of white, then blackness. And then I was back, in the driver's seat. The rain was drumming on the roof. Oasis was on the radio. The tree was 100 yards down the road, waiting for us. The loop had reset. "What is this?" Jessica was screaming, clawing at her door handle, but it wouldn't budge. "What is happening?" This time, the girl in the back, Chloe, turned her head. She wasn't laughing. She was looking right at me, her eyes dark and empty. Her mouth didn't move, but a voice echoed inside my skull, a voice made of static and sorrow. "Why did you lie?" It hit me then. This wasn't Chloe's ghost. She wasn't haunting us. We were haunting ourselves. The thing that was doing this, the thing that killed Sarah and Mark, it wasn't a spirit looking for revenge. It was the lie, our lie. It had grown in the dark for 10 years, fed by our guilt and our fear, and now it was a living thing, a parasite. And it didn't want to kill us, not yet. It wanted to be heard. It wanted the story to be told right. The tree got closer. The impact, the white light, the blackness. Reset. We were back in the car again. Today is gonna be the day. The rain, the laughter. But this time, something was wrong. The laughter from the back seat sounded distorted, like a tape being played backward. I risked a glance in the rearview mirror. Mark and Sarah were still there, but their faces were wrong. They were melting, their features drooping like hot wax, their mouths opening and closing without a sound. They weren't my friends anymore. They were just puppets made of rotting memory. Chloe still looked at me, her face pale, but now a dark, thin line of blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. The lie was getting stronger, and it was shedding the parts of the story it no longer needed. I looked at my own hands on the steering wheel. They seemed pale, almost translucent. I looked at the rearview mirror again, trying to see my own face. What I saw wasn't me. It was a nightmare. A twisted, broken thing stared back from the mirror. It had my eyes, but they were shattered pits of darkness. Its form was a collage of the crash itself, a face made of jagged shards of windshield glass and rusted metal, its shape held together by whispering shadows. It was a monster born from a single, selfish moment of cowardice. The lie had a face, and it was mine. I was its heart. I was the engine that had kept it alive all these years. The tree, the impact, white, black, reset. The car, the rain, the song, Chloe's voice in my head. Why did you lie? I couldn't take it anymore. We were trapped, forced to die and die and die again until the story was corrected. Jessica was just sobbing next to me, a constant, hopeless sound. There was only one way out, not to run from the lie, but to destroy it, to starve it, to tell the truth. As the Honda hurtled toward the oak tree one last time, I took a breath, sucking in the stale, doomed air of the car. I didn't look at the melting figures in the back. I didn't look at the monster in the mirror. I looked straight ahead at the tree that was about to kill me again. And I screamed.
I screamed with everything I had left, my voice raw and breaking, a confession shouted into the heart of the storm. It was me! I was driving! Her name was Chloe! We left her there! We ran and we left her to die! It was all my fault! The moment the last word left my lips, everything stopped. The sound of the rain, the music, Jessica's crying, it all vanished. The forward motion of the car ceased, hanging suspended in time and space, an inch from the oak's bark. The monster in the rearview mirror turned its head, and from its fractured metallic mouth, I saw something that looked like a smile. A violent, wrenching sensation, like being thrown from a great height, slammed into me. I saw Jessica's body fly sideways, not into a car door, but into nothingness. She was gone, and I was still here. The loop was broken, but I wasn't free. The car, the tree, the rain, the Saul night, it all solidified around me. No longer a memory, but a permanent reality.
My reality. The dashboard clock was frozen at 1:17 a.m. My hands were fused to the steering wheel. Outside the windshield, the world was a blur of motion. But in here, there was only the final second before impact, stretched out into eternity. I wasn't Liam Ashworth anymore. I was a part of the story. I was the ghost of Ashford Mile. The lie had its truth, and I was its